Hello guys, my name is Evans and welcome to this video. In this video, I'm not going to be doing a past paper or solving a past paper, but a number of you guys have asked me to do a video on some tips that you'd need as you prepare for your exam. So I was just compiling some of the things that I feel would really help you guys going into especially paper 2 exam that you guys will be taking tomorrow. So I've just been able to put up some of the things, checklists or so, that you guys need as you prepare for the paper tomorrow. Make sure that you know this stuff by heart even as you go into the paper tomorrow. So let's go through some slides that I've prepared just for you guys. So we'll look at the structure of an Igcse ICT paper 2. Since you are the one guys who are it's the one you're writing tomorrow, and if there will be time, I'll be able to put up another video where I'll explain the tips for paper 3, but this one let me just do for paper 2. So we'll look at the structure of an Igcse ICT paper 2, and we'll look at the time management. It's very important that you divide your time very well in the exam, otherwise you'll find that the examiner will be telling you that 5 minutes to the end of the exam and then you have some sections that you have not yet dealt with because you mismanage your time. We'll look at document production checklist, and then we'll look at data manipulation checklist. We'll look at mailmate checklist, and lastly we'll look at presentation checklist. And then of course there will be just some final words of encouragement to you guys as you go into this paper. Okay, so the structure of an Igcse ICT paper is that the paper is a 2 hours 30 minutes paper. So this is where the aspect of time management comes in, because this is not a paper that you're going to write the whole day. You'll be in the exam room for 2 hours 30 minutes. So that means all typing and the working should be done within this period of time. This of course is with an exception with special people. I call them special people because they are special. Cambridge has allowed them about 50% extra time on these 3 hours or 2 hours 30 minutes. So usually they have about 3 hours 45 minutes as the working time. So for them the paper will be 3 hours 45 minutes. Okay, but for the rest of us as ordinary people the paper is 2 hours 30 minutes. So all our working should be done within this 2 hours 30 minutes. Okay, and the paper is made up actually of 4 parts. Okay, so the first part is document production, and then you have data manipulation, and you have reports, you have labels, you have queries. All these come in under data manipulation. Of course, mailmage is just I think after document production, if I'm not mistaken, or after data manipulation, but the order really doesn't matter here. I'm just listing them, that this is the content that you're going to find in this paper. You also find a presentation as part of this paper. Okay, so you guys, you need to really be careful when you prepare for this paper that you don't study amiss. Of course, there is the temptation. Some people don't even know what is involved in a paper 2, and so they just study all the topics that will be there. They study web authoring, they study they study Excel and all this other stuff. Okay, of course it is important to study, but they are not relevant when it comes to preparing for a paper 2. So you need to know the topics that you'll be meeting in a paper 2, and you should be very confident and very confident actually when it comes to tackling any of these topics that I've listed here. Okay, so let me go straight into looking at time management. Like I said, this paper is a 2 hours 30 minutes paper. One of the things that you have to do is to work on your speed versus accuracy. Remember, there is you are prone to making mistakes when you are very fast. Some simple errors, even a 1 + 1, you may write it as 11. So you need to be very careful when you are tempted to be very fast solving this paper, and then you need to retain the accuracy. That's very important. Now, if you are very fast and your accuracy is good, You may finish this paper in 1 hour 30 minutes or so. We've had in my school, we've had cases where students have been able to finish the entire paper in about 1 hour 15 minutes, 1 hour 30 minutes. The whole lot of the paper has been finished, because one of the things that we teach them is to work on their speed, at the same time attempting to retain the accuracy. That gives them the time where if they finish this paper in 1 hour 30 minutes, you have the remaining 1 hour to make sure that your work is actually corrected. So if you realize that you made some mistake at some point, you can reprint your work and then submit the correct way. So we encourage you not to submit the work. Okay, suppose you finish this paper on time, you finish say within 2 hours, or you finish it within 1 hour 30 minutes. Please don't be in a hurry to show everybody that you finished this paper. You are the first person to finish this paper. Take your time. Okay, there are silly mistakes that we make when we are in a hurry, so it will be wise for you actually to take your time and just hold back, sit back, go through the paper once more until the examiner says it's time up, hand in your paper. That's when you want to do the handing of the paper. Otherwise, you guys will find that you leave the exam room, you've handed in your paper, and then you realize that you've made a grave mistake on one particular question. And the funny thing is that examiners will not allow you, invigilators or supervisors will not allow you to come back to modify some of the changes that you thought should have been made during the exam. Okay, so guys, it's very important. Aim to work or solve this paper as fast as you can, but also try to consider the accuracy of your work, because that is what overall gives a correct answer or a wrong answer. Okay, so the other thing is that you need to time your work. Okay, so there are 4 major topics in this paper: document production, data manipulation, mailmage, and presentation. You need to time your work in such a way that you spend at least or not more than 30 minutes on each major topic. I know some topics like data manipulation, they will require more of your time, and topics like mailmage, they require less of your time. So you can trade off that time. Okay, so for example, you finish mailmage in about 15 to 20 minutes. The extra 10 minutes can be pushed onto data manipulation, and then you can use that time to perfect your work. Okay, but if you took that time where on every activity you spend about 30 minutes, you find that you have an extra 30 minutes after the exam, after you finish the exam, to go through your work. Okay, so that is very important. So guys, speed versus accuracy, but also aim at just spending not more than 30 minutes on each major topic. Okay, if you are a slow person when it comes to certain topics, make sure that topics that you are confident with, you be fast on them, but take your time on topics that you are not really comfortable with. Okay. The other thing is that don't skip an activity. This paper is logical. Okay, usually sometimes you find that you get stuck on one activity and you're forced to say, okay, let me just go and do this other activity and all, and you lose track of the thing that you're supposed to do. Okay, so most of these activities are logical in nature, and skipping some of them, for example, you skip from let's say you skip from a work that is you're doing on data manipulation, you go to you skip labels, you go to reports, and so on and so forth. Some of the work actually depends on some of the activities you would have done. I'll give an example of document production. Sometimes they will ask you to use certain data that you would have retrieved or that you would have created in data manipulation, in Access, for example, and you're going to use that information in your document production section. Okay, so try as much as possible to follow the logical order of the questions, and be confident when you attempt these questions. Otherwise, you find that you'll be skipping as many questions as possible. Of course, you can skip 1 or 2, but that really is when it's necessary. But in my opinion, I think it is very important that you go step by step. This is why you find that they allow you to check the boxes of any step that you do, so that you keep tracking these steps. Okay, but when need be, or if there's need for you to really skip a part because you cannot do it, please go ahead and skip it. But if you can't do it, just go the logical way. Okay. Alright, so the other thing that you guys are supposed to do is that you are supposed to print when you're asked to print. don't wait till the end. Now students have got a tendency of being afraid. Well, if I print this, maybe what about if it's wrong? Okay, I'll wait for others to print, and then I'm going to print myself at the end as well. So please don't avoid that, because it is going to put you in a panic mode. And in the exam, you're allowed to print as many times as possible. Of course, schools or centers are advised or are encouraged to allow candidates to print. So if you print and then you realize that there was a mistake on your printout, you can still go ahead and print, unless you're in a school where they tell you you're only supposed to print once. All right, I hope there's no school which is telling you that you're supposed to print once, because Cambridge allows you to print as many times as you feel the need to print your work. Okay, so please print when you're asked to print. That will ease the pressure off your shoulder, and then you're going to solve this paper very well, step by step, so that you don't leave out anything. In fact, you're going to print the work that is required. I've had instances where maybe one student or so misses to print the evidence document. When we're just about to end the exam, that's when the student remembers that actually the evidence document was never printed, and you know, and it was good that the person remembered actually just prior to the end of the exam, so that they could print. I know Cambridge also allows you to print at the end of the exam. Like after the end of the exam, they can allow you to print, not working but just printing. Okay, so that is still fine. So don't wait to the end until you print your work. Okay, the other thing is that call for invigilator or supervisor help. Okay, for help when you are in need. Okay, don't wait when it's too late. Sometimes you experience a hardware failure, maybe your computer is frozen, it's not responding, and then you take your time. Okay, you take your time, and then maybe you wait 10 minutes just waiting for your computer to respond, and then by the time you raise up your hand, you've already lost that 10 minutes. It won't be accounted for, and the thing is that the supervisor will not know that you've been waiting for 10 minutes. So when your computer freezes, better just raise your hand and say, hey, my computer is frozen, so that the supervisor can begin to time how many minutes you're going to take in that, or the computer is going to take in that state where you guys are going to wait for it to respond, or if you're going to restart the computer, how you're going to save your work and all. So any technical issue, please don't wait for the supervisor. Just put up your hand as soon as possible, or as soon as the mistake happens, and then you'll be advised accordingly on how you're supposed to take the next step. Okay, so don't wait until you are really under pressure. We've had an instance also some time back where a student towards the end of the exam, that's when they raised up their hand that they had some error, and they have been experiencing this error since the beginning of the exam. So that is unacceptable. Okay, so if you notice something is improper, don't wait until it's too late, because we will not give you extra time. We did not account for all these steps. We just think you did not do your work properly. Also, make sure that you are saving your work periodically. Okay, don't keep just working. I've had once a case sometime back in 2014 or so, where a student was not saving her work, and after I think 30 minutes to the end of the exam, then she puts up the hand and says, I've lost all my work. And I said, what do you mean you've lost all your work? Because there have been steps in the questions that have been asking you to save, but you've been skipping those steps. Okay, so whenever you're asked to save, but just make it a trend that after 15 minutes or 10 minutes, save your work, so that you are on a safe side. Okay, and a lot of things can happen on two computers. Can be fire, they can be computer can crash or anything. These things can happen even without planning for them. Okay, right, so let's go into the checklist that you need for document production. Now this is not a full list, or the list is not exhausted, so to say. There may be other things, but these are things that I feel are cardinal, and you cannot avoid to run away from these things if you're going to answer any question from document production. Okay, so one of the things that you need to know is how to deal with paragraph properties. Okay, things like font sizes, things like alignments, things like spacing, space before, line spacing, space after. Okay, these are very vital things that you cannot do away with in document production. So you should know how to traverse, how to maneuver in Word, in Microsoft Word, or whichever word processor you're using. You should know how to maneuver and how to get to paragraph properties, so that you can edit your work, align your work, and do just this other stuff that you need to do, columns and all this other stuff. Okay, so the other thing that you need to know is you need to do your layout well. You need to know how to do your margins. Okay, you need to know how to do your columns, your page orientation. You need to know how to insert this stuff in your work. It's very important. Things like headers, footers, this cannot be overemphasized. Okay, you need to know how to set up your custom margins, how to set up custom columns, and how to deal with orientation. Okay, orientation is always a must. Margins, columns, orientation, you will always find this stuff in a paper too. It's like it's like the way your name is inevitable. Your name, okay, so we'll always address you by your name. Okay, that's the way these stuff are. Okay, layout, you cannot do away with this stuff. Paragraph properties, layout properties, you cannot do away with this stuff. You always find them. So make sure that you know how to take screenshots for margins, screenshots for columns, screenshots for page orientation. You should know how to do to deal with this stuff confidently, and I mean, without really being under pressure, sweating. Okay. I always see this joke that imagine you're a student and you see everyone is using a ruler in an exam room, and you don't know at what stage that ruler is being applied. Okay, you just look to your left, you see someone is using their ruler and they are busy drawing and doing this. You look to your right, the same, but you don't know. You have your ruler on the table, but you just don't know where you're going to use that ruler. So you just start wondering now, whoa, I failed this course, or I failed this subject. Okay, and worse off if you come out of the exam room and you find your group of people discussing the content of the exam, and then you try to join the group, and then you realize that they're talking about something that you did not do in the exam, and then you fell to sleep. All right, okay guys, so be confident, be ready, expect the unexpected, but much more in a practical paper. You can expect what you prepared for, expect what you studied. That is what you are going to be tested on, especially the syllabus. You guys, you have the syllabus, you are going to be examined, nothing outside the content of the syllabus, so just be ready. Okay, the other thing that you guys need to do is to be familiar with how to insert objects in your document. Things like pictures, things like tables, hyperlinks, and stuff like that. You should be confident how to insert this stuff into your document. Okay, so we cannot overemphasize that. So the other thing is that you need to know how to deal with orphans and widows and document consistency. Things like blank pages in a document. When you're done working with a document, there shouldn't be some blank pages. Things like sentences hanging on their own, widows or paragraphs that extends onto the next page. Okay, you find that a paragraph ends or is supposed to end on one page, but one sentence it extends into another page, overflows into another page. Okay, those would be orphans, and you don't want to have orphans or widows on your page. Of course, orphans and widows are interchanged. Sometimes widows are called orphans and sometimes orphans are called widows, but the idea is the same, that any sentence should not hang on its own. So the beginning of the sentence should not hang on a page and then the rest of the sentence continue on another page. Okay, that should be avoided. And the same is true when you have the last sentence of a paragraph shouldn't exist on its own on a separate page. So a paragraph should exist on one page unless it is broken into multiple lines, then it is allowed to exist on multiple pages. Okay, so that is that. Then guys, you should also know how to deal with section breaks. Sometimes you'll be asked to deal with section breaks, and here this is where you're going to cut or break your page into multiple pages. Okay, so whenever you insert a section break, it's going to be treated as a new page. Okay, and the formatting that would exist before the section break and after the section break can actually be different. You can format that in a different way. This usually is true if you're going to be asked to separate. Maybe they tell you that break the text that is after the first paragraph into multiple columns or into 2 columns. Okay, so excluding the first paragraph, the rest of the text should be broken into 2 columns, and this is where section breaks are very vital. So insert page breaks, section breaks, all this stuff is very vital. And in the recent syllabus, the 2016 syllabus and all, one of the things that have been predominant is the house style specifications, and this is where you guys are going to create styles for your for your formatting of your document. You create things like titles, styles, subtitle styles, and body styles, table styles, and so on and so forth. You need to know how to create these styles, where to go, when to modify a style, how to make changes to a style. Of course, you need to know how to do that. Okay, so these are some of the things that you guys would need to know when you do your document production. The last thing that you need to know is how to insert your footer, how to insert your header, how to insert your file names, automated dates. Okay, so under file name, you need to know how to put your path as well. You'll be asked to do that. You need to know how to insert automated dates. You need to know how to insert automated page numbers, your candidate name, your candidate center number, your candidate number. All this stuff you need to know how to deal with them as you prepare for your exam. So you guys, if you are confident in all of these things that I've listed here, guys, you are guaranteed of getting maximum marks on this section of document production. Of course, there are other things like which are general things like cell merging, command setting up text to fit within margins, image flipping, text wrapping, and all this stuff. These are also vital, and you really need to know them. Okay, so let's go to the next checklist for data manipulation. Okay, so I hope you guys are benefiting from some of this stuff that I'm sharing with you. I know I've never shared this with many students. Of course, some of you have been able to get with me, in touch with me on Skype. I've had some lessons with some of you on Skype, and some of you have been able to contact me on Facebook, and I've been able to respond to you on Facebook. Some of you are inboxing me on my sending messages on my YouTube, and I've been able to respond to you. But whatever mode that I've been able to respond to you, I hope whatever I've shared with you has been meaningful, and you are making the most of it. Okay, so let's go with data manipulation and the checklist that you need to make. So the most vital thing when you talk about data manipulation is queries, because in a data manipulation thing, you are talking about databases, and there are two types of queries. You have action query and you have select query. A select query. An action query is a query that performs something onto the database. Things like deleting some information on the database. Things like appending something to the database and all using a query. But at our level at IGCSE, we mostly deal with select queries. Okay, well, we are going to retrieve specified information from the database. So we need to be comfortable dealing with queries. Okay, things like using the less than stuff, the filters, and all those things. Using dates, okay, using wildcards. You guys, you need to be confident how to use this stuff as you prepare for your data manipulation. You also need to know how to do sorting. Okay, oftentimes you'll be asked to rearrange your data in a particular order, maybe in ascending order, in descending order, and that really is going to be of help to you as you prepare your exam concerning data manipulation. The other thing is that you need to know basic formulas like count, average, sum, if, max, and min. These are dominant formulas that you guys are going to encounter in data manipulation. I could have also included count if, because it's also vital. Count if or count, but the most ones that you find is average, sum. Okay, average, sum, or sum if. These are going to be very vital formulas as you work with your database, especially when you come to the section for dealing with reports. Mostly these are going to be, so be confident with how to use these formulas or these functions, let me say, in data manipulation. Then the other thing is that you're going to deal with labels, whether they are 2 columns or 3 columns, but one of the two will come, and you guys should be confident. And if you're dealing with a 2 columns label, it is important that you choose a label that fits, that gives you the good number of labels on a particular page. Sometimes you'll be asked that you need to have about 8 labels on your page. Okay, so how you can tell is when you select your labels, when you use your label wizard, if you select a label with a size, very small size, then you're going to find that a lot of them will fit on one page. But if you select a label with slightly a larger size, fewer of them are going to fit on a particular paper. Okay, so the other thing is that you need to know how to print your page to fit the width. Okay, or how to print it so that it fits on a single page. Okay, these are things that you guys should know. In your report, sometimes they'll ask you to make sure that your report is actually sitting on one single page, or the width or the columns are not flowing to the next page and all. So you need to know how to deal with this section. Of course, dealing with things like page orientation and stuff like that, they are also vital. Lastly, you need to know how to deal with saving queries and reports in an importable format. Sometimes you'll be asked to work on a particular aspect in data manipulation, and then when you finish working, then they ask you to save it in a particular format so that it can be used maybe in a document production section. Okay, so you need to know how to save information in, for example, into Excel format, or into a text format, or into PDF, so that you can import it into another section of the question paper and use that information. Right, so next, the checklist for mail merge. So mail merge, you need to differentiate between source file and master file. Okay, so you learn that your source file is actually a file that is going to be your database, and your master file is that ordinary file that you are going to be using to update with the information from the master file. So your master file, rather with the information from the source file, your master file contains the field names and all, and you guys are going to be using it to update it with the information from the database. Okay, so you need to know these two files. Okay, then you need to know how to insert objects, things like dates and merge fields. You need to know how to insert them because they are very vital in a mail merge section. Okay, then the other thing is that you need to know how to filter your information. Extract only required data. This is always the case. The first three are always the case in mail merge section. Okay, there are maybe other things that you may be required to do, but I was just selecting those things that are always there in an exam. You always find them, so you need to be very confident actually working with some of these activities here. So you need to know how to use the filter and the sorting and so on and so forth if it is required. Then you need to know how to merge the letters. After you do all these things, there is need for you to merge the letters or your document. You need to know how to do that. You need to know how to print that merged letter. Sometimes they can ask you to print the letter with the merge field showing. Sometimes they can ask you to print the letter or merge and the letter is only for a specified location, and then print those letters. Okay, so you need to know how to hide and show the merge field. I think it should be alternative F9 if I'm not mistaken on your keyboard. You should be able to toggle between hiding and showing the merge fields. Okay, and lastly, we'll look at the checklist for presentation. You guys, you need to know how to work with the slide master. It's one of the most powerful features of presentation software. Especially Microsoft has actually done well to put this feature where you can just edit some segments, where you can, let me say, you can edit a slide, one slide you can edit, and then you can affect the properties for other slides. So all the other slides are going to inherit the features from this presentation slide, or rather this master slide. Okay, so you need to know how to deal and put objects onto the master slides. Okay, then you need also to know how to switch from the master slide into the normal presentation. Obviously, you guys will know how to deal with your normal presentation because this is probably what you've been working on since Form 1 maybe or so, grade 8 and stuff like that. So you should be confident in doing that. You should know how to insert objects from slide master, things like dates, lines, logos, diagrams, colors. Okay, you need to know how to do that. Fonts, first level, second level, you need to know how to do that because that is almost coming in the exam, in each and every exam that you're going to write henceforth. This is a core feature of presentation. Next, you need to know how to insert objects from normal view. So for example, things like pictures, things like videos, things like audio, things like links or hyperlinks if you want. You need to know how to insert this stuff without any challenge. Okay, then you need to know how to insert your presentation notes. Sometimes they'll ask you to insert presentation notes or notes for the audience. You need to know how to do that. You need to know how to perform an evaluation, and a number of you guys have asked me what is evaluation and all. So evaluation looks at the credits or the pros and the cons of something. Okay, the advantages and disadvantages, the limitations, and the what I almost say the success the limitations of something. Let's just use advantage to be on the safe side. Right, so you look at both the advantages and the disadvantages of something. So you literally criticize something, whether it is really worth, how is it seen. For example, if you're evaluating a website, you look at how the hyperlinks are working, how the images are blending in, the font sizes, the font colors, the objects, the images, how they blend in and suit. You just look at how fit is this thing, how fit or how suitable is this information or this feature or this website or whatever you're asked to evaluate. Okay, so usually you are asked, when you're asked to do something, then they ask you to evaluate that. You find that in paper 3 also, some evaluation. They can ask you to evaluate maybe the website that you've created. Sometimes you can find it in PowerPoint. They can ask you to evaluate your presentation. So just be ready that you can be asked to evaluate on something. Okay, then you need to know how to print your handouts. Okay, you need to know how to print your handouts. Sometimes they can ask you to print it 4 pages, 4 slides per page, sometimes 6 slides per page. You should know how to print that. And lastly, you should know how to print slides with presentation notes. Of course, when you go to the print section, there are different options that are there for you. If you want to print something onto the screen, so you should know how to do that, and that should work out well for you. And then finally, my final words to you guys as you go to do your paper. So this afternoon I was chatting with my wife, and I was telling actually that well, my students will be writing their exams tomorrow, not in my school, but I consider you guys who are watching these videos as my students. And yeah, you're really an amazing group of students, and I appreciate your work and the support that you give my channel. And she was so excited that you guys, you've been a part of this channel. Oftentimes she would give me that freedom. For example, right now I'm at the office, and this is past 10 p.m, almost maybe 11 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. And she's just alone home, and we don't have any child yet. And so it could be maybe where she's missing you or she's what, but she's giving me that freedom where I can come and do this work for you guys, just for you to go and do well in your exams. So she was able to tell me that I should be one of the most excited persons if to find that you guys really did well in your exams. And I'm very confident you guys are going to do exceptionally well in these exams. Your schools are going to record tremendous, or let me say very good or excellent results in their history in this course because of this channel. I've had a number of teachers who are using this channel to help in their teaching as well, and a number of students also are using this channel from different countries. A lot of countries actually watching this one, this channel. We've had, just in the last, I don't know if it's in the last few months, we've had over 200,000 students watching different videos on this channel, and it's really been of help, I suppose, to many. So my final words to you guys is that as you go into your exam tomorrow, or some of you guys who are going to be watching this video way later than the ones who are writing the exam tomorrow, always know that confidence gives you just about 15% of the actual exam that you're going to write. Just being confident automatically guarantees you that you're going to get a free 15% there. And if you're nervous, you forfeit that 15%. And everything, your body just conditions itself, everything becomes so tough. Even the simplest of the questions that you could have answered, you just close your mind, you tell your body, I cannot do this, you tell your mind, I cannot do this. But you guys, when you go there with a confidence, this is what I've been preparing for the last 3 years or last 2 years for some of you, and you just walk into the exam room with your head high like a child of a king to say, well, this is what I've been preparing for, and I'm going to do well. Now, a number of you guys have asked me to wish you well for your exams, to pray for you so that you do well. My prayer is that you are going to do well. You're going to do exceptionally well. ICT is going to be one of the subjects on your certificates which is going to carry a good grade, a very good grade or an excellent grade. and I wish you a very good exam tomorrow. I hope to hear some testimonies of how the exams went. Please come and comment back. I love to hear some news. A number of people who wrote the November exams came back and commented how they got their A stars just by watching this channel, and I was very excited just to receive and hear such testimonies. So thank you so much, guys, for the support that you've given me. I encourage you, as you're going to exam, don't forget about this channel. Tell others about this channel. Even when you're done with school, you got kid sisters or whatever, tell others about this channel, and you will be glad that they were a part of this channel. So from my wife and I, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in another video where I'm going to do maybe some tips on paper 3, if at all I will have some time to do that. So guys, thank you, and all the best in your exam tomorrow.